Salutations, Kindred Souls. Welcome back to another episode of Lux Martin Enlightenment. Today, let's talk about the difference or the threshold from when healing becomes toxic. How much healing is too much? When does the healing journey become a story you tell and an identity to be stuck in rather than a place to move forward from? On this channel, we talk about all things healing enlightenment. Not the kind that floats above life, but the kind you find smack right in the middle of it. And this episode is going to be a truth bomb for both me and hopefully for you, because this topic is blowing up my life right now. It is everywhere. And so I want to be really transparent and vulnerable with you about how it's showing up in my life and calling me forward. This channel is about all things healing, enlightenment, self-growth, and development. And so it's very important at this time, I'm being called to distinguish the fact that this is what I want to do in the world. This is what I want to do and help people find. But it is not an identity for me to stay stuck in. It is not a crutch to lean on, in which case I need to step forward into the threshold of trusting my sovereignty and intuition. So this is the declaration episode, and there is not a better day to do it than on the Lionsgate portal. So thank you for taking this in with me and absorbing this truth bomb with me so that I can step forward into all things fantastic and magnificent because of this channel and what it's doing for both me and you. So yeah, here we go. We're going to talk about 6 key points today of how when healing becomes too much healing becomes toxic. And we're actually going to start with point number 1 of healing it as an addiction, when the story of doing the healing is a compulsion or addiction. And I'll be straight up honest with you. That is exactly where my healing journey started. Point blank, I started off in addiction and compulsion. The only reason I decided to thrust myself face first into the healing journey is when I lost my person. When we separated, got divorced, our lives fell apart into shambles. I was so distraught, and it was so unacceptable to me that he saw me as unworthy, unacceptable, all of these horrible qualities. It was so unacceptable that I just went, how do I fix this yesterday? So I plunged headfirst into all of the ways I needed to be better for him. Not gonna lie to you, it wasn't for me at first. It was so I could have my person back. And compile that on top of the fact that I grew up from a family, and I grew up as a person who was essentially a workaholic. I grew up with a workaholic mentality family, as well as the need to get shit done was the only way I could feel satisfied in life. And so to me, it was the way to deal with the enormous pain inside me of this marriage falling apart. So I plunged headfirst into, how do I fix everything about me that isn't going to work for this? That is absolutely the wrong place to start, at least from a overall arching perspective. But I want to be clear with you in the fact that it absolutely did not matter, because through that process, even though I started off with the wrong intentions, it transformed me into seeing the right intentions, the right reasons, and loving and appreciating that all the more, even though I started from this really crappy little springboard here of, this is ruining my life, how do I fix it now? So healing can definitely, absolutely become an addiction, compulsion, and point number 2 is going to explain why or how that happens. But I want to be clear with you that it's okay, because you can grow out of that. You can identify and shift when you're addicted to healing because you're looking for an outcome or you're just trying to solve a problem, to this has made me a better human being and a more enjoyable human life experience. It's absolutely possible to shift out of that. I've seen me do it. But healing is absolutely toxic when it comes from a place of compulsion to fix a problem. Point number 2, this very clearly, especially in my life, identifies the avenues in which the compulsion or the addiction to the healing journey became toxic, in the fact that I kind of sort of still am and have been for a long time, outsourcing my inner authority to all of my sources, all of my tools. There's a point when seeking turns into outsourcing. Still don't trust your inner knowing because you're doing things like I do, which is very clearly not being able to make decisions without your YouTube channels, your TikTok messages, your Facebook posts that you scroll through every day. I so deeply, multiple times over, have fallen into the trap of literally not feeling like I can make my own decisions unless the channeled message of the day tells me that it's okay to make that decision. And then even having that have negative consequences in my life when I step into something so urgently because I thought that it was the thing to do, and I thought that that's what the guides, the sources, the cards, the channels were telling me to do, and having negative consequences to that. So there's that real like hot stove feeling in my life right now of, am I making this decision because it's coming from my inner authority, or because everything else in my world, all of my channels, all of my sources are telling me it's time, you got to say this, you got to do this. And it's driving my world crazy right now. It's driving my headspace crazy. And so it's important to stop and realize that when you are using all of the healing journey tools as your decision-making process, you no longer have the power of your own decision-making. You've given away your sovereignty. And so that is very much the place I'm being called to step into, taking my power back and not seeking validation from the channels and the sources I listen to. Fun fact here, here's a real confession for you. I looked at my YouTube analytics the other day. I take in an average of 3 to 4 hours daily of YouTube. And I will tell you that 99% of it is all things spiritual, self-help, development, astrology, tarot, messages. 3 to 4 hours a day, every waking minute in my car, every break on work. And that's a very stark comparison to the mini goal I've set for myself of spending 10 minutes a day in silence. How silly does that sound? You go ahead and laugh at me. Like, Lux, what in the world are you doing? You spend 3 hours a day taking in self-help material and 10 minutes in silence a day? What are we doing here? And so that is the very obvious sign to me that I have outsourced my decision-making to these tools, these people, these things that I cling to, that I listen to direly for information. And so I'm being very much called to cut a lot of that out, not because they're not great resources and not because they haven't been amazing, powerful tools in chugging me along, but because it's time to step into the threshold of sovereignty, intuition, and trust. The more you train yourself to look outward for truth, the more disconnected you become to your intuition and your inner self. So I'm being totally transparent with you that it's time for me to jump that gap, to take that leap of faith into letting the intuition speak louder than that help, the spirituality tools, the sources, and things like that. So that moves us beautifully into point number 3, which is the intuition threshold, where the healing journey is meant to lead you to a threshold, which I am very much at right now, in which you stop collecting tools and stop investigating and start using them. I have been so diligent in building the most immaculate toolbox of spirituality and self-help ever. Like if I, worked at a dealership and I had this beautiful thousands of dollars of toolbox or whatever, like all my babies, all of my drawers are nicely organized and whatnot, I would have the epitome of the spiritual or the healing toolbox, the Cadillac of healing toolboxes. You name it, I've looked into it. But just standing there looking at the beautiful toolbox doesn't get you anywhere, doesn't actually fix things, nor is it integration. So at this point, knowing that I have this beautiful toolbox to stand here and look at, it's time to start using the tools and wrenching on what is my life. So that threshold is where I'm being loudly called to open the drawers, grab the tools, and start going to. And honestly, the go-to first tool should be my intuition. Just like I would encourage the same thing for you. So this is the threshold is the moment where you stop digging, stop investigating, and start planting the seeds. And this is where it gets a little scary, because it's like putting your money where your mouth is, or it's like putting the seeds in the ground and trusting that even though you know seeds don't come up today, tomorrow, or maybe a few days from now, you do know that seeds grow and that eventually they'll come up. So this is the jumping off point in the healing journey to the next phase. There comes a point where you need to stop living in this cycle of I'm healing, I'm working on it, I'm fixing it, and start the doing, start the living. Point number 4 is the concept of help versus habit. And this is another thing that I'm being really called to check in my life right now, is when spiritual sources or helpful sources, even if you're a person that likes to listen to psychology resources or great doctors. There are so many amazing doctors out there with podcasts that I listen to all of the time. Healers, courses, teachers, tools. They are medicine. They are medicine and tools along the healing journey. And I absolutely believe that. There are things people have given to me, offered me, courses I've taken that have revolutionized who I am. But at some point, if you keep taking medicine after you have healed the ailment, it's not medicine anymore, it's poison. And so that is exactly what I'm being called to see in my life right now, is that continuing to absorb information and resources is no longer medicine for me. It's a crutch. It's a problem in my life that's slowing me down. So a great question, a gut check question that I'm being called to ask myself, and I would beg you to ask yourself, is, am I using this to move forward or to avoid trusting myself? So that's a key one right there. Am I using this because it is actively moving me forward? This course, this counsel, this group, am I moving? Is there a direction happening? Or am I avoiding the direction that could happen where I could choose? There's a difference between being guided and being dependent. One helps you rise, the other keeps you waiting. And that is very much where I have been looping right now lately, is in this energy of waiting. When is it going to come? When is it going to fall into place? And it's because these sources for me are no longer medicine. Point number 5, the power of integration. This concept of integration is a step in the healing journey. Kind of overarching throughout, in the sense of when you start the healing journey, you start to become very aware of all of these fragmented pieces of you that you wish to put back together, whether it's childhood wounding, psychology, spirituality, inner child, all of the pieces. You do start to collect and put those together. And that is what I've seen me do over the last 5 years, is start to put the fragments back together into a resemblance of wholeness. And it feels good. You'll feel the difference of as these pieces start to come back together. But there comes a point where most or all of the pieces are put back together. Then what? What more is there to unfragment? Then integration becomes a new step of, can I integrate all of this healing work that I've done into living my life? It's when the insights you've learned over all of this journey, all of this work, becomes lifestyle, not just insight, not just helpful hints. Integration looks like making decisions from your own clarity. And I've talked about that in another episode, where you choose that your choice comes from you and you alone. There's power in that. And there's power in the fact that that means you're operating from a baseline belief of there is no such thing as the wrong choice, because when I make a soul-led choice, even if it's not going well in the moment or it has adverse consequences, it's leading me to right where I'm supposed to go. So in this adverse reaction of this choice, it's not because I made the wrong choice, it's because I'm being called to observe this, work with this, navigate this in a way that's going to change me again and lead me in a new and better direction. There's immense power in that form of integration and believing that your choice making is yours and yours alone, and that you are indeed making the right choices based on your intuition or your gut or your higher self, your soul-led choices. Integration looks like trusting your nervous system as cues or a compass, not as a decision. So that's a really clear distinction I want to make, is that soul-led decisions feel really clear and peaceful. Our human body doesn't really always make clear and peaceful decisions. Even just this week, being hormonal, being a woman, being stressed out, being tired, my body is giving me cues that don't align with soul decisions right now. I can use them as cues to help steer me into a place where I can hear the soul-led decisions, but it's important to note that the human body is not designed to make the decision for you. It's meant to keep you alive. Your ego, your human carcass, your nervous system are tools in the toolbox also for your soul to make the decision. Somebody needs to hear this today. Do not let your body make the decision. Okay? It's a tool, not a decision maker. It's not the end all be all. And the last point I want to say is integration is living in wisdom, not just consuming it. I am an amazing consumer of wisdom. I love going down every rabbit hole. I love digging so deep because it feels profoundly wise. It feels like the revelatory experience. However, integration means living from that knowing or that learning, not just being the student forever. Integration is when healing stops being work you do and starts being the way you walk, the way you live, the way you exist. Finally, point number 6 is choosing to let your intuition lead, which the reason we do this is because we believe that it is benevolent, it is leading us down the right way. All of these things, all of these tools are in the toolbox to help us, and our intuition is here to help as well. It's one of those things. So it knows more than we think it does at times, and it's time to start believing that. But here's the tricky part. Here's what this looks like. Intuition isn't loud. It's very common phrase in the spiritual community that your ego is loud, the loud voice, and your intuition is the whisper. And in my case, I find that to be pretty true, pretty accurate, especially when what's going on in my body or my world or whatever I'm doing in my real-time moment doesn't match the energy of the intuition voice that's speaking that note at the moment. Noticing the difference. Intuition is often quiet, and it is often gaps of silence, and that can be terrifying. It is terrifying to me. But I think the way we put a bow on this concept is when you decide to let your intuition lead, it is accepting the fact that you are trusting to live surrendered in moment by moment, and also believing that not having the bird in your ear every minute of every day is okay. You're going to be okay. It's okay to give yourself permission to make your choices, do your life, do the day-to-day, because you can't throw it off the guard. You can't throw it off the rails that quickly just because your intuition didn't drop something in this hour of the day. So I hope somebody needed to hear that, because I needed to hear it today, where it's okay if there's nothing coming in. I used to believe that having that information continually in my ear was continuing to feed me instructions so that I could not make a wrong choice. But when you let there be silence, that is also your intuition telling you something. Keep doing what you're doing. You're fine. You're not jacking it up. It's going to be fine if I don't say anything to you for an hour or a day or a week. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine because you live from a place of trusting and knowing and sovereignty. You have to trust that you've done the work to know that one decision is not going to throw your life down the drain. How is that even possible after all of the work you've done? It's not. It's not. So that's a freeing truth for somebody here. So the real work of letting intuition lead is often choosing to trust it, even when there isn't external validation, nor is there continual input. Key point there. So I want to finish this episode with the final gut check questions of how to discern for you and your life if you're in this toxic loop of healing where healing is a crutch or a story instead of a place you've graduated and moved on from. Question number 1. Am I still healing this, or am I avoiding moving forward or into this next thing or phase? Am I still actually healing it, or am I avoiding something? Question number 2. Am I integrating or just investigating? This is a huge one for me too, because currently in my life, a lot of fears and problems are cycling back up again of stuff I know I've done the work on. I know. Little side story here. In my life experience, I believe that God tests you. It's controversial. Some people don't believe in tests like that. But in my human experience, I so very believe that God tests you and he makes you take the test more than once. So, in my opinion, that is because it's kind of the test of, are you going to walk the walk? Have you really learned the lesson? Does the test score continue to change or improve the more I throw this test at you? And so in this question of, am I integrating or just still investigating? It's the call to ask yourself, are you continuing to dig or fester up this problem, or investigate for more healing, more tools, more fixing in this area of your life? Or is this God testing you to see if you've integrated the new you? And that's a huge thing I'm being called to ask right now, is to understand that, yeah, you're having this exact same fear come up again, even though you've really, really dealt with it. Show up as the new you that's going to deal with this differently than previous versions of you did it. And that's the test. And then you do it and you move on and you live life. Third gut check question. If I stopped searching, what would I hear? And that is essentially the invitation to allow silence in your life, because both the intuition dropping in and the lack thereof it is guidance. It is wisdom. It is leadership to you. So if you give yourself the opportunity to stop searching, stop consuming, and just let there be space and silence, what drops in or what doesn't drop in? So that is my invitation to you, because it is absolutely my invitation and my declaration to all of you on this channel that have so lovingly pioneered on this process with me, that this is exactly where I am in my life, is being called to step out of the healing identity and into the threshold of wholeness, sovereignty, and living my freaking life, knowing that I've done it. I've done the work. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to enjoy all of the things that are headed my way now. I have all of the tools that it takes to do this life. Maybe not all of them. Even if I don't have all of them, I know how to get them and I know how to use them. And then I know how to continue moving back into living my life. And I hope that was exactly what someone needed to hear today. You have all the tools. You are a new, more competent version of you that knows how to use the tools. Do your life and trust that you can handle whatever comes up. Keep seeking, keep softening, keep showing up. The light you're looking for is the light you already are. And I hope that in sharing this really real-time topic, you and I can both feel like we're not alone in this. This is an invitation for both you and I to realize that nobody's failing. These things coming up again, or this cycle of stepping out of the identity of healing, doesn't mean you failed. Doesn't mean you're getting it wrong still. Doesn't mean you have more crap to work on. It's the sign of growth that you're ready for the next step, which is integration and living your freaking life. This episode is to give myself and you permission to stop searching and start trusting. I hope you have a beautiful day, a beautiful Lionsgate portal. Manifest, have everything you ever wanted and dreamed of in life. Declare it, speak it over your life, and then believe it and go about your day being your badass self. Talk to you next time.